All right, so we're live. People are tuning in. Thank you, everyone, and welcome to April 2nd, 2020, a month that we will all remember, and welcome to Manny's Super Civic Cyber Conversations, Manny's effort to civically engage the public in this important time. I really appreciate you all tuning in. We have disabled chat, but we will afterwards send you an email with the Join It link if you want to support my small business during this time. I really appreciate it. Today we are joined by my very close friend, college roommate, and current ER doctor at UCSF to talk about what it's like being an ER doctor right now in the time of a pandemic. So Becca Lozano, Dr. Lozano, how are you doing right now? How are you feeling?
In this moment, got to go outside a little, see the sun on a walk.
Yeah.
So that was very rejuvenating.
Yeah.
Very needed.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, if y'all have questions for Rebecca, you can start typing them in the Q&A box. We're going to get the questions in about 15 minutes. But if you have a question for an ER doctor, just go ahead and type in the Q&A box. Okay. So first, Becca, I want to kind of lay out what you do, who you are. So can you tell us, how long you've been an ER doctor, what hospitals are you working in, and kind of what your current job and role entails?
Yeah, so I graduated from med school last year. So I'm in my first year, just about to finish my first year of residency. Okay. So I trained in New York, and I'm at UCSF as a resident. Okay. So I'm in emergency medicine, so my specialty will be working in the ER. Okay. And then the hospitals we work at, all the resident staff, two main hospitals. So there's UCSF, it's called Parnassus or Moffitt, and then there's San Francisco General Hospital. So those are the two larger hospitals in the city.
Okay, and I know today you were on a long call with a lot of the other ER doctors and residents and stuff, and folks are you've been on a lot of phone calls and a lot of prep calls. Can you just kind of tell us what are you guys talking about, and how are you preparing for the surge, and are you already starting to see it, or are you still in prep mode?
Yeah, great question. So we've been preparing for it since since the start of January. Since middle of January, we've been doing it. We started screening. Fortunately, our city had gone on lockdown kind of first.
Yeah.
Or our county did. And so that has really limited a lot of our cases and kept a lot of them lower than in other places in the country that we're seeing. Right. And so that's allowed for us to do a lot of prep. So it kind of shifted everything we're doing in terms of workflow and preparation in all aspects. So something that I personally worked on is protocol for emergency medical response. So how do we help our paramedics triage patients differently, because every patient they're interacting with is totally different now, considering they're all possible corona cases. So how do they prepare for that? How do they reallocate resources? At UCSF, we set up a giant tent outside. There's two large tents that we set up that are just for triaging respiratory patients.
What does that mean, triaging respiratory patients?
Yeah, so we have our normal emergency department. So normally we see around, let's say, 90 patients at once. Mm-hmm. And given that we thought we were going to have, this large influx, and we want to sort of isolate those kinds of patients to prevent spread from others, we set up these giant military tents in what was a parking lot space. Kind of within the course of 2 days, we set these up, and they're fully functioning. We could do surgeries in them. And any patients that have any sort of breathing problems related to shortness of breath, they all go there, and they're evaluated. And then we kind of put them in different places depending on if it's something related to something like a coronavirus, or if it's shortness of breath related to something else, let's say asthma.
So right now, if God forbid I had these symptoms and I was like, okay, I need to go, I have a bad cough, I have a fever, I've got shortness of breath, I'm going to go to CSF, I would be directed to go to these military tents, and then something in full garb. What would happen? I would go there and do that.
You go to the tent, you're going to be treated like a normal patient would. It's just, from our perspective, we basically set up an entirely different emergency department separate from ours that is completely fully functional, with all of our other staff, security guards as well. Everything has also been duplicated in this other space.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's intense. Okay, I know this is a really stupid minor question, but I know it gets cold up there in the Parnassus. Is it heated in those tents, or is it because it's raining?
They are heated.
It's raining all weekend.
They are heated. They actually get really hot. Like I'm always on the run. I'm always sweating.
Okay.
And they actually have like, they're called negative pressure. So, which helps with preventing the spread of disease. So that's what's really important for that is like the air pressure is decreased so that stuff doesn't spread through the air as
Okay.
easily. So they're pretty fancy.
I have more questions about what it's like being on the ground as an ER doctor, but before we do that, you and I have talked a lot about this. It's been very helpful to have an ER doctor as a close friend during all this. But for those of us that don't have close friends who are ER doctors, what are the telltale signs that someone has COVID-19? And also, like, have you seen instances of COVID-19 in people that either don't have those telltale signs or they have some combination of those and other things?
Yeah. So the classic signs are kind of what you would see with a flu. So COVID is really just another viral illness. So most people present with like shortness of breath, the sore throat, back aches, like myalgia. So body aches, but primarily back aches seem to be a big one. And then we also see like fevers, chills, and then some people get abdominal pain, and then it kind of spreads out from there.
Mhm.
A lot of people have really mild symptoms. So I know some people who I know are positive who really had a sore throat and then who had backaches.
And
Um,
okay, and what I know, most of us know this, but for those who don't, like, what can you give us the breakdown of like what percentage of people who have these what percentage of people like have these symptoms? Those
yeah,
who do, how many of them are need to go to the hospital, and those that go to the hospital, like how many of them are serious,
that's a
roughly?
great question. So it's hard for us to say exactly because our numbers of who we're testing is not, there are a lot of people that probably have it that are not being tested. Um, Anyone who is significantly ill from it are being tested, right? So we know probably who is most ill from these. Our estimations around 80 to 85% of people who get it have no symptoms to mild symptoms, meaning they don't need to be hospitalized. So they might have shortness of breath, back aches, fevers, chills. You might feel pretty unwell. Um,
You don't need to go to the hospital.
you don't need to go to the hospital. The reasons to come to the hospital are if you think you need medical treatment, like I think I need to be hospitalized.
So if you think
Um,
you have COVID, that's not
yeah,
necessarily a reason to go to the hospital.
definitely not. Yeah, definitely not. If anything, it'll put you at risk and others at risk as well because you're going to spread it to more people.
So
Um,
it's just,
uh,
just one more question on that. If you have COVID, but you were like, I'm sick and I think I might have COVID, but
yeah,
I don't need to go to the hospital. As in,
yeah.
what would you recommend that person do?
I would recommend if you have a regular doctor, give your regular doctor a call. A lot more places are starting to do like phone visits, and they'll have a nurse or your doctor can help triage you and tell you like these are things to look out for. This is when you should come back to someone, or maybe you should definitely go in to see someone.
Okay.
And we're also setting up a lot of places as outpatients, so meaning not in the ER, to get testing. At San Francisco General, we're actually today we put up a set of tents also in a different parking lot, so a different hospital
Okay.
that's like in the Mission, and it's going to be just for testing for patients that don't need to be hospitalized but think they need to be tested. So this just
Okay.
launched today.
And why should someone go there to get tested? Like, I think a lot
Uh,
of San Franciscans like want to do the right thing. You know,
yeah,
we're all trying to help each other out and like be team players. But I think at the same time, there's a little bit of confusion of like, should I get tested? Should I not get tested? Should I go, like, am I endangering someone by going to get tested? Should I go to the hospital? Should I not? So why should someone go get tested?
so I think from a population health perspective, it helps us know how well we are quarantining the disease. And from my perspective as a doctor, it's really helpful so that when I send you home, I can call you back in a couple of days and say, look, you do have a positive, and you
Yeah.
should really patients are more likely to quarantine themselves and be more careful about spreading if I can tell them for sure they have COVID versus I think you got the flu.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm being told that we're gonna try something. We're gonna try a poll, but my
Okay.
staff hasn't told me the exact question I'm gonna ask. Oh,
Mm,
now they did. Okay. Do you think San Francisco is doing a good job on flattening the curve? Not for you, B, for the
yeah.
participants. We have 75 people who are listening in. On your screens, you should have a poll come up. Do you think San Francisco is doing a good job on flattening the curve? Yes, no, or hard to tell. Please click so that we can see what people. Oh, hold and. Oh, I'm not allowed to vote. Well, that's
Am I
not
allowed to
fair,
vote?
is it?
Let me see.
Yeah, I don't think you're allowed to either. So we're doing a poll. We're
Dang.
trying this out because we're doing a lot of these talks, and we want to see how this goes. So now what do I do, Sam? Do I just wait? Has everyone done it? Can everyone see the poll?
I can answer one of these questions. Does it have
No,
a
not
separate
yet.
ICU as well?
Not
Should
yet.
I do this while people are polling?
Not yet.
Okay.
We wait. Okay, we're just gonna wait, and people can vote.
Oh, people can't vote.
Only one person can vote.
No, it's saying on the side. Valentina
Um,
said she can't.
Okay, Sam, the operator, is gonna take care of it. Sam,
Okay.
thank you for doing that. Keep looking. Okay, everyone's poll is fucking up. I'm so glad we got it. Okay, so what is the biggest misconception that you are seeing as an ER doctor about what's the biggest like rumor that you want to squash that you're seeing?
Oh, biggest rumor.
Or biggest misunderstanding about this virus that you've been hearing?
Oh, wow. There's That's a loaded question. It kind of depends on which patients, because each patient I see, even if it's not related to Corona, I'm asking them if they have questions.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are asking basically like, how can I best protect myself and things like that. And then I also have thoughts about like PPE, mask use, given that there's a shortage for people who really need it.
Right.
A couple things, two things come to mind. One is the N95 masks.
Yeah.
Those ones, you do not need them as a regular person. The only people that really need them are medical people who are like in the mouths of people who are infected and getting their saliva and spewing it into little droplets in the air. So like if you happen to have a regular mask or just are able to cover your face and you want to do that while like you're grocery shopping and things,
yeah,
that's a much better option than like freaking out about the N95s. And also when you put on a mask, wash your hands. Do not touch the mask while you're out. Otherwise you're contaminating it and then you're wasting it. Like don't do that.
So like that's a question. Mayor Garcetti recently instructed all the people of Los Angeles, the city that we're from, a county of like 10 million people, that everyone should wear masks. Which obviously like is going to cause a run on masks, and our frontline health workers like yourself, need masks because you're putting yourself in the most danger because you're literally talking to people every day. Do you feel like we all should be wearing masks? I mean, if you were mayor of San Francisco, who I'm interviewing in 30 minutes, would you recommend that everyone wear a mask?
Yeah, that is a great question. I don't feel like I have the best data to say affirmatively yes or no. I don't think anyone necessarily does.
Yeah.
I'm definitely that's not my specialty. So I can't say for sure yes. I would say if you're sick, if you have any suspicion of being sick and you're going to be out, please wear a mask. And then for other people in general, like when you're out, just don't touch your mouth, your eyes, your nose.
Okay, for folks who are tuned in, we have a lot of folks tuned in. Please go ahead and type in your questions in the Q&A box. I'm not sure what happened to the poll, but just go ahead and type your questions in, okay? Becca, what is the mood like in the emergency room at UCSF right now?
It's pretty mixed emotions and pretty high, a large mixture of emotions. Fortunately, in San Francisco, we have not seen a giant uptick in cases.
Yeah.
The emergency departments as a whole in the entire Bay Area, all of us doctors all talk to each other, like it's a close community. And our general caseload, meaning how many patients are coming through the ER at once, let's say we're normally operating at like 90% capacity, has been down to like 30 since the quarantine had started, since shelter in place. And that's been pretty stable. Yeah. So we feel really fortunate in a lot of ways that we're not seeing the giant uptick that other places are seeing. And then the call I just was on with my colleagues is a lot of us are feeling a sense of guilt, actually, because so many of our colleagues are being slammed and are in really unsafe and scary situations. Yeah. And there's not really anything we can do. Like people in New York, people in New Orleans, people in Detroit.
Yeah, you have friends that are working in the ERs in New York right now. What are they telling you? What are they saying? You've told me some stories, but maybe for the folks who are tuning in, what are your ER doctors in New York dealing with right now?
ER people in general tend to have a very like team dynamic, and people who go into are like, I got this, like we're all going to band together. They're kind of crazy people. So there is that like general camaraderie that's there, but there is also a huge, I mean, they're overloaded. Patients are kind of throughout hallways. There's no protective equipment. I have friends that have used trash bags as barriers while doing CPR.
At like legit
At
hospitals, right?
fancy hospitals in Manhattan that are known to be like hotels. Okay. Yeah. And it's really terrifying to see like young people who end up getting really sick, and they just got slammed within the course of a week. So, and I think the more concerning thing is that they're seeing a lot of patients come in and not a lot go out. So the idea that this is going to alleviate soon is not really there.
Because the people who are coming in and not going out, are they on ventilators?
Yeah.
And how long does someone need to stay on a ventilator usually?
Normally, the idea is a short turnaround. So a few days, a week. The older you are and the more health issues you have, the harder it is to get someone off a ventilator.
Yeah.
But the idea of a ventilator is to bridge you so that your lungs are able to recover. What the ventilator does is it breathes for you because your lungs are not able to.
Actually, can you go into the like biology of what this virus does to your lungs?
Yeah.
What a ventilator does to combat
To do that. So from our understanding, what it does is it likes to kind of take place in your lungs. So the virus kind of goes throughout your body, and it likes to really hang out in certain enzymes that affect your lungs. And it causes basically like fluid to kind of build up in it, and causes something called ARDS, which is acute respiratory failure, meaning your lungs just kind of stop working. Lots of different things can cause this, but this coronavirus is seen to be doing this. And so basically your lungs stop working, and so you can't get oxygen in and out. And so what a ventilator does, you put a breathing tube down your throat, it goes into your trachea, so here, and then it oxygenates for you. And when you're on that, you're normally sedated because it's super uncomfortable to have like something down your whole throat. And it breathes for you and gives your lungs time to recover.
Yeah. And are there any like long-term health ramifications of having to use a ventilator? It seems pretty invasive.
No, generally people have like throat abrasion, so they feel like a sore throat when they get off of it. But if everything goes well, it's not from the ventilator that you get issues. We've had ventilators around for a long time, so like the science of like settings and things is pretty good.
Okay. I just have a couple more questions for you, Becca, and folks who are tuning in. If you have a question for Becca Lozano, Dr. Lozano, who's an ER doctor at UCSF, Dr. Lozano. It's not weird to say it. I'm just so proud to say it. Becca and I went to college together. We lived with each other all 4 years. I saw you go through medical school. I was one of the first calls when you got the residency.
This is true.
And now you're an ER doctor during a pandemic. So I'm just so proud of you. A lot of people are talking about wanting to help our frontline workers.
Yeah.
It's like in New York, people are leaving their apartments and clapping or whatever, and people are putting lanterns out, and everyone's talking about how to help our frontline workers. You are a frontline health worker. You are an ER doctor. You had a respiratory sesh yesterday, right? You were on the respiratory beat, which I'll ask you about that next.
Sure.
But how can people be most helpful to a frontline health worker who's dealing with this on the front line?
I think the most you can do, if you happen to know anyone that has access to lots of masks, gowns, goggles, like 3D printers or things like that, great. Outside of that, I think the most you can do is show love. And then we are all going through this, right? Like I'm doing this in this capacity, but this is impacting everyone, and we're all kind of in the same thing. And I think how I'm trying to frame this is like, we're all going to come out of this. So the question is like, what kind of a person do I want to be looking back on this? And I think we're all going to come out of this, hopefully, because we came together as a community. So like spreading as much love and support as possible, I think is the best we can do.
Right. So yesterday you tell people what the shift you had to do yesterday and what it was like.
Yesterday I had my first shift that was just in the side of the hospital that we're doing with just for breathing complaints. And so all the corona positive cases, so patients that for instance, I had a patient that was like in a hotel being quarantined, who had a known positive case, who couldn't safely quarantine at home because of other people around him and things like that, who came back in because was having a lot harder time breathing. So patients that are known to be positive who are coming in, who are probably going to be admitted to the hospital, and other patients that are new, but most likely have corona. And the entire unit was filled with that. And that was my first time kind of being completely surrounded in that. And it was kind of a lot, to be totally honest, in terms of like just the layers of things that we have to wear. Is very time consuming to take on and take off between each patient. I have to clean everything down between each patient. And then there's like this intimacy. I'm used to touching my patients, like being there, holding their hand. Yeah. And to minimize exposure, I'm doing most of my interview from 6 feet or further back. I'm only touching as little as necessary. I'm trying to do all of my evaluation in one setting, so I don't have to go back into the room. So there's this aspect of like love and healing that I like to do that I'm struggling to figure out how to do.
God, that must be really hard, because you are such an empathetic person. You have a very warm, vibrant energy, and to have to conceal that, at least physically,
yeah.
I feel like you probably are like trying to retrain yourself almost, like,
definitely. I did make up for it though. Like I started wearing glitter on my eyes. I normally wear red lip stain to work because it makes me feel empowered. So I had like gold sparkly all over my eyes, and then my hair's covered in a hairnet. So I found a way of tying like a really cute bow on top. Nice. So I have like this big bow, sparkly eyes. It's covered in like a visor and 2 masks and stuff, but like still tried to make it a little not so scary.
Well, there are a lot of questions. I obviously have for you, but let's get to some of the audience questions. I'm going to ask them. You're not going to ask them. I guess.
Okay. Sorry.
Clifford wants to know. Don't take my job. Don't take my job from me. This is my job. Clifford wants to know, does that military tent thing outside of UCSF have a separate ICU as
well? We will use it as an ICU. Yeah. Okay.
Corey wants to know, if people have N95 masks to donate, where should they bring them?
Oh, drop them off at the hospital.
Which hospital? Like which one?
You can do, actually, to be honest, any hospital. They're all asking for donations. I know Kaiser is, UCSF is, the General is. Our med students at UCSF is collected a lot, like standing on corners, and they collected a bunch.
I think they've been standing on 18th and Dolores. They reached out to me about that. Nick,
okay.
I had to get a blood tested today due to an autoimmune disorder that he has. They didn't screen me at the door or at reception, not until I was seated by the phlebotomist after I'd already sat in the waiting room, mostly with chemo patients and others in poor health. Should that be concerning? Are we dropping the ball with health precautions in regular areas at hospitals outside of respiratory clinics?
I'm surprised to hear that, to be totally honest. Everywhere I know, they're doing a decent amount of screening, even over the phone before you come in. So that seems like, yes, that place dropped the ball.
Okay, Jen wants to know, what about the ibuprofen controversy? I think it's more of a rumor. Like, is it true that you can take ibuprofen because it'll like fuck shit up?
You can take ibuprofen. It's okay. We actually talked about this a lot within my community and went back and forth. There's it's like subjective data that we're saying is not accurate.
Okay. Someone named Uprising.
Also, if you're super concerned, just take Tylenol. It's a good alternative.
Okay. Uprising wants to know, how have you been taking care of yourself with so much going on, and how can we best support you?
Been trying to do like these Zoom chats as much as possible, listening to good music, trying to find like a ray of sunshine through a window when possible, yoga, same as everyone else. So if anyone has good ideas, please let me know.
Okay. I'm sure if anyone has good ideas for Becca on how she can take care of herself as an ER director right now, type it in the Q&A box, because the trolls have caused us to shut down our chat box. Jean wants to know, I heard at Zuckerberg General there was too much food donations being sent, but they had to throw some away. Is donating masks and such a better way to support what you do, or what else?
Masks, I think, is great. Yeah. And if send food over to people in New York, please.
Okay, like to the doctors?
Yeah, to the hospitals.
Why? For the doctors or for the?
Because they're not leaving the hospital. So like in New York, they suspended, residents have restrictions on work hours. So 80 hours is the max amount we're allowed to work in a week. And the they have suspended that for the state of New York. So residents are working more than 80 hours a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Alex and Luke, I don't know how that works, but Alex and Luke want to know, what do we know about aerosols and coronavirus?
Oh, great question. So aerosolization means basically when you have droplets and you turn them into little particles that disperse into the air. So things that aerosolize, dental procedures, if you put a breathing tube in someone's mouth, if someone uses medications like inhalers, the normal inhaler doesn't aerosolize, but ones when you come to the hospital and they set off like little misting, that aerosolizes. For the normal individual, you're not going to encounter aerosolizing of people's particles.
So like if someone coughs, that's not aerosolizing.
No, that's droplets. Droplets are kind of, so this is transmitted through droplets. So if someone coughs, they get their mucus on you, and then you go like this, and you put your hand in your mouth, droplets get in that way. Aerosolizing is the idea. You have like tiny particles that disperse throughout the air. Certain things are aerosolized and transmit that way. They're airborne. For instance, like, yeah, so, but this is not one.
Okay, Marilee wants to know, is it safe to go on a walk to the beach with people you do not live with if you stay 6 feet away from them?
The idea is yes. I would say to try really to minimize those as much as possible, to be honest, because even if you're trying to stay 6 feet away, then you're 6 feet away, they're 6 feet away, and then you come on this tiny crosswalk and then you're not 6 feet away.
So on that, like I've seen people like try to not stand like downwind of other people. Like,
yeah,
is it better if you're hanging out with someone to not be downwind of them? Because San Francisco needs to be.
But yeah,
like is the thing is if someone sneezes and the wind travels it on your face,
yeah,
it's gonna give you coronavirus if they were positive?
Yeah.
Damn. Okay. Clifford, how is it decided what doctors and staff go where? COVID care versus regular ER?
We all just go where we're told. There is, so our older faculty, so people were more at risk. So if anyone's pregnant, immunocompromised, or our older faculty, we have basically asked them to not. And if they insist on it, they can.
Got it. Okay. OFM Marin County team has an N95 mask that they've been using. They couldn't donate it because they've been using it. Any reason why this person shouldn't wear it at the grocery store if it keeps them from touching their face?
No, that's fine. I will say if you touch the inside of the mask with dirty hands, it becomes dirty. So if you've done that, I would give it a few days. So if there is virus on there, it can die on its own, and then you can use the mask again.
How long does it take for virus to die?
Depends on the surface area. I'm happy to send you a thing that tells you most things 72 hours.
Okay, but I'm sure the CDC probably has that too. Sarah, are HCPs being tested for COVID on a regular basis? I don't know what that is.
What's HCP?
Sarah, can you type in again in the Q&A box what an HCP is? Healthcare provider. Oh.
Provider?
Are you being tested on a regular basis? I got it. HCP, healthcare provider.
We're not. If I become sick, then we let occupational health know, and it kind of depends on the site how challenging it is to get the test. And the more tests we have, the more available, but no.
Awesome. Kathleen and FEMA have both sent in links for people that want to drop off or donate PPE.
Thank you.
You collect those links and we'll send it to the folks who have tuned in tonight after when I send all my emails to people. Thank you, operator. Joshua Wise, I'm part of a group expanding a well-regarded mental health crisis text line for medical workers across the US and UK. Do you have an idea on the best networks we can tap into to get the word out of those who might benefit?
That is a great question. If you wouldn't mind sharing that with me, I can disperse that to a bunch of different people.
Josh, you can send it to me and I'll send it to Becca. Okay, great.
And we can talk off if you want about that too.
He's amazing. He comes to all of our events. He's really awesome. He's got great hair. Marlene, what do you recommend as best practices or products to use for sanitizing and cleaning at home for daily living with roommates? Great question, because I'm like, Lysoling everything all the time. What if you live alone, and what if you live with roommates?
Great question. So this kind of depends on how much more at risk you are of contracting it. So if you happen to be working still and going out, then you're someone who's going to be at higher risk of getting it than, let's say, someone who's not. So it kind of depends on your dynamics. If you I will tell you like worst case scenario. So if I become sick, and I have to quarantine. I have two roommates that they are roommates. They're not my significant other or anything like that. And so minimizing contact, not sharing dishes if you think you're sick, and daily cleaning of high use surfaces. So you can use like any sort of regular sort of cleaner that has, I think it's 75% rubbing alcohol or higher, like kitchen surfaces, bathroom, toilet, daily.
Okay. Chelsea Harris, what's your perspective on cooking at home versus eating delivery or picking up from a restaurant? Is one
Right.
safer than the other? And then, folks, we have 2 minutes left. Just FYI for those who are moving on, we've got 2 minutes left.
I would say to support local businesses. I know a lot of people that are eating out often. I'm personally not someone that likes to eat out often, so I like to cook at home. And I would say to minimize my risk of exposure, I'm cooking at home. I'm sorry, Manny. I know that you like to support local businesses all the time, but personally, I would prefer to cook at home
Okay.
because people cannot have symptoms and still be cooking.
But you can't get it from food, right? Like we don't coronavirus. You can't like. But if someone like that's at a restaurant has it and prepares your food, it can get in the food, right?
Sure, exactly.
Okay, that is scary. How long does the virus live on cloth? Ariel, we're going to send that, all the CDCs, all that stuff to you after the fact. Final question is Chelsea Harris. What are your thoughts on the fact that some healthcare providers from other parts of the country that are less impacted so far are being called to treat in hotspots? Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? Like,
I would say probably a good thing.
yeah.
If, I know when I had friends call me from New York this weekend, I wanted to get on a flight over there.
I know, in a way, I listened to Dr. Fauci's interview today in the New York Times, and
Yeah.
he asked about the comparisons that are being made to this as a war. And,
Yeah.
and the fact that he's kind of like a general, right? He's like at the kind of the top, and our president is kind of like the jester at this point, it seems.
Yeah.
But you as a frontline health worker, you're a soldier, right? Like you are
Yeah.
literally at the front lines. You're a soldier, like a infantry woman, and you have and you probably didn't know you were going to get into a pandemic in your first year as a resident. But
Yeah.
I'm sure you, in the years that you went to med school and you trained and you did your whatever your rotations, there was a sense, right, that you're in this to save lives, right? That's what you're going to spend the rest of your life doing. So can you just end with just talking a little bit about kind of psychologically and philosophically and ethically how that's all going through your brain right
Oh Lord. Great question. I'm still processing it. I think it's easy to get freaked out, especially when you're surrounded by things and sort of chaos, and be like, I just want to step out and like live in a bubble, peace, see when this is done. But you're right. Like I'm doing this because I want to help my community, and this is the time for it to happen more than ever.
now?
And I think the most amazing part is my colleagues. Like we're all coming together and supporting each other nonstop with like cute pictures and weird phone calls and like vent sessions, and it's really inspiring. And these have happened. Like the AIDS was the last pandemic to happen, and so a lot of my faculty were in my position here in San Francisco when it happened. And so these kinds of things will happen, and we come out of it, and communities and amazing things will happen too. So I don't know.
Becca, thank you so much. For the folks who are tuning in, I have a couple quick announcements. One, Manny's is closed right now, and we do need your help and support for my small business to reopen after all of this. We're not going to be able to operate for the next month, and Lord, we need some financial help. So these talks that we're doing 5 today, are free for those who can't afford to pay a ticket. So if you don't mind going to joinit.org/o/Manny's and become a sponsor of Manny's. It's $36 a month. You can cancel anytime, but really this is the kind of financial support that we need right now. It's joinit.org/o/Manny's. I want to thank Sam, our operator, for operating this call, and Ram and Jupiter for my team. And most of all, first, I would say if you like this conversation, you want to help spread the word, you can tag us at Welcome to Manny's. And finally, I just want to thank Becca, my very, very close friend, my hero. And I'm so proud of you, and I'm happy that you're doing this because I know that you will do a great job, and we're praying for you. Okay.
Love you. Thanks for your time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in.